just want everyone to be aware of the severity of what having a digital ID.
Right now, outside the most powerful address in Britain, a fundamental breach is unfolding, not of barriers or windows, but of the implicit contract between a leader and the people he serves. And tonight, that shattered pledge bears a single name, Starmer. Thousands have converged on Downing Street, not armed with pitchforks or spectacle, but clutching their energy bills, documents that have tripled in cost, compelling families to make agonizing decisions between essentials. These are the bills indifferent to ideology, concerned only with survival. This is no partisan demonstration. It is a grassroots uprising. If you're tuning in, the reasons are likely all too familiar. The scene is extraordinary. From Parliament Square to the gates of Number 10, the crowd is so dense that authorities have sealed off 3 adjacent streets. Protesters brandish signs scrawled on the reverse of final demand notices, while chants that erupted at 6 p.m. persist unabated 4 hours on. This is not orchestrated disorder. It is the manifestation of accumulated hardship, simmering for 2 years. Before we delve deeper, if you're seeking in-depth coverage of developments often sidelined by mainstream outlets, subscribe now. We're monitoring this live, and you'll want to follow the unfolding events. Let's examine the path to this moment. In 2024, Starmer campaigned on a platform of stability amid prior turmoil. He vowed that Labour would restore public trust, prioritize working families, and confront the cost of living crisis with resolve and empathy, his precise phrasing. Campaign imagery across the nation depicted him in rolled-up sleeves, engaging with everyday citizens in homes and local halls. The implication was unmistakable. He was distinct, attuned to their struggles. Yet the reality diverged sharply. Energy bills escalated by 54% over 2 years, plunging over 2 million households into fuel poverty, figures drawn directly from Ofgem data, not conjecture. Concurrently, £30 billion in green energy subsidies flowed to offshore entities, many under foreign ownership, as British households rationed their heating. The hypocrisy grew untenable. While government ministers urged austerity, their expense claims revealed heated secondary residences and idling chauffeured vehicles outside Westminster. When pressed in Parliament last month, Starmer dismissed these grievances as short-term thinking, asserting that net-zero commitments were non-negotiable. That term struck like a rebuke to the millions who had no say in forfeiting their warmth. They simply endured its absence. The footage spread rapidly online, not for its content alone, but for its delivery, detached, rehearsed, as if scripted by someone insulated from the fear of failing to keep a child warm. Consider those assembled tonight, not radicals, but NHS nurses fresh from 12-hour shifts, still in uniform, bearing placards that declare, "I save lives but can't heat my home." Teachers witnessing pupils arrive in winter layers because parents must choose between food and fuel. Pensioners, after 4 decades of labor, now weighing medication against basic warmth. Small business proprietors whose energy expenses quadrupled, shuttering establishments, a bakery in Leeds, a pub in Cornwall, a print shop in Manchester. These are not climate skeptics. These are ordinary citizens posing a straightforward question. Why are we subsidizing foreign wind farms while British children huddle in winter coats inside their own homes? And why is raising such a query dismissed as heresy? The government's retorts have been revealing. Energy Secretary Sarah Jones branded the protesters as useful idiots for fossil fuel interests. Climate Minister David Walsh accused them of scientific illiteracy. Yet, amid the throng tonight, one observes not fools, but neglected individuals at last reclaiming their voice. Here lies the stark reality. Starmer refuses to acknowledge that the planet cannot be saved by impoverishing its inhabitants. Net zero is not the adversary. Rather, it is a net zero strategy that exacts punishment on the vulnerable while shielding the elite that demands scrutiny. And that is precisely what we have witnessed. Green levies spare the affluent but devastate households on fixed incomes. Carbon taxes evade multinational corporations through offshore maneuvers, yet they force the closure of domestic factories. The prosperous secure government rebates for solar installations. The impoverished must decide between electricity and warmth. Last year, Britain's major energy firms reported combined record profits of £4.1 billion. Starmer's windfall tax, riddled with exemptions, captured less than 30% of anticipated revenue. Shell's effective rate stood at 19%, BP's at 22%. By contrast, a single mother in Birmingham shoulders the full brunt of her doubled energy bill, without loopholes, without financial advisors, without respite. This is not effective governance. It is political performance, and the public has ceased its applause. The data paints a grim picture. In 2024, fuel poverty afflicted 8% of British households. Today, it engulfs 14%, equivalent to 4 million homes where families devote more than 10% of their income merely to heating. The plight is acute among pensioners, with nearly 1 in 4 now curtailing their use of warmth. Admissions to hospitals for cold-related ailments have surged 31% over 2 years. Last winter alone, 3 elderly individuals in South London perished in unheated dwellings, a direct consequence of cost-cutting measures. Within number 10 at this hour, advisors are doubtless assuring Starmer that the unrest will dissipate, that it amounts to mere clamor. But heed that clamor, the chants are not waning, they are intensifying. This transcends a single policy or invoice. It concerns dignity and acknowledgement. When constituents declare, "I simply cannot afford this," it demands leaders who grasp that politics is not an abstract strategy, it is the substance of human existence. Yet these existences are being offered up on the altar of environmental targets decreed by those insulated from the chill. Starmer forged his reputation as the pragmatic figure, the barrister, the meticulous analyst who interrogated witnesses and unearthed truths in their accounts. But in the transition from opposition to authority, the everyday citizen vanished from his purview. His addresses devolved into polished presentations, his replies into prescripted lines, and his professed empathy evaporated behind invocations of necessity. He deemed the escalating costs a necessary sacrifice, words that ring hollow when one's utilities are subsidized by the public purse, when one has never lingered at a modest kitchen table, tallying whether the kettle can be boiled without ruin. What sets tonight apart from prior demonstrations is its organic nature. This is not orchestrated by trade unions or orchestrated by opposition factions. No central figure directs it. No manifesto outlines demands. No structured agenda guides the action. This is raw, unscripted fury, ignited not by spin doctors, but by the harsh arithmetic of household budgets that simply fail to balance. When a full-time nurse cannot afford to warm her residence, the system is not merely strained. It is fundamentally fractured. When a Falklands veteran must choose between a cup of tea and basic heat, we have not merely strayed, we have forsaken our core values. And when the Prime Minister counters with yet more benchmarks, more bureaucratic rhetoric, more pleas to trust the process, he is not governing, he is evading accountability. Already, fissures are appearing within the ranks. This afternoon, 3 Labour backbenchers issued a collective statement demanding an immediate reassessment of energy policy execution, a clear signal that constituent outrage is reverberating through their offices. Even a Conservative MP, long an advocate for net zero goals, confided to journalists, "We cannot demand planetary salvation at the price of public bankruptcy. This is not prudent policy. It is outright callousness." So, what lies ahead? History teaches that when crowds of this scale assemble, driven by authentic suffering, outcomes bifurcate. The leader either heeds the call and pivots, or the leader succumbs. Starmer retains the former option, but time is eroding it rapidly, more insistently than the escalating chants. The British character is renowned for its civility and forbearance. We queue dutifully, we offer apologies for others' missteps. We endure quietly because overt complaint is unseemly. Yet endurance has bounds. Tonight, beyond those wrought iron barriers, those bounds are not merely challenged, they are being shattered. This transcends ideological divides of left and right. It concerns the chasm between the decision-makers above and the affected below. Those below are now asserting unequivocally, they reject further manipulation, further condescension, further burdens while the powerful remain untouched. If Starmer genuinely contends he stands on history's favorable side, he must emerge, not with a prepared address or a social media missive, but with genuine attentiveness unencumbered by notes. For history is not authored by statesmen cloaked in platitudes. It is forged by citizens who, when the toll of silence exceeds that of protest, choose to speak out. Tonight, Britain has tallied the costs. The query is not whether this surge will dissipate. Such movements, rooted in tangible grievance, do not wane. They amplify, they proliferate, they compel transformation. The pivotal question is whether Starmer will engage before the window closes, before this evolves from a policy impasse into a profound crisis of authority, before the refrain Starmer must go shifts from chant to imperative. What unfolds from here? Will Starmer confront the Assembly directly? Will he entrench further, or emulate predecessors by wagering on apathy? Share your forecast below, and if this narrative resonates as vital, disseminate it, not for our sake, But for those assured their hardships are mere transitional pains, they merit recognition that their plight is shared. This is merely the inception,